The first one is, every time I hear somebody talk about Islam, they keep telling me that the really good people lived a long time ago, and really, really bad people, if you want to find them, where do you find them? Right now. So we're all really messed up, and they were all really awesome. And the great golden days of Islam are not ahead of us, they are where? Behind us, right? And so everything good about Islam is already done. It's actually a part of history. And most of the time I'm just made to feel bad that I don't live at that time. Over and over and over again. That good people lived a long time ago, we're pretty much all terrible people. This religion belongs in ancient times. And if you really want to bring the good days back, then you have to live and act like it's 1400 years ago. You cannot acknowledge that you're living in 2015 or 1998 or whatever. You can't do that. You have to imagine that you're living in Umar bin al-Khattab's time, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. You should almost feel guilty that you don't have a camel parked outside. That's the first attitude. That it's basically, I'll summarize it, the first attitude is that this religion is outdated. Here's my second attitude. My second attitude was that this religion is pretty harsh. It's pretty tough. There's a lot of ways to end up in hell. A lot. And the rules that this religion has on top of that seem kind of harsh and unfair too. How come a woman's testimony is only half that of a man? How come, how come a man can marry 4 women? How come you cut the hand of a thief? What is that? Why did the Prophet say this? Why did the Quran say that? And there were so many things that when you first hear it, you're like, really? Am I the only one who's kind of bothered by that? Or is that like, no, you should just believe it, don't question it. And I started developing insight. I never said it, because you know what happens if you say it. So the religion is harsh and unfair. That was my second attitude. Harsh and unfair. The third attitude that I developed, okay, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot anyway. Yes, it's harsh, it's unfair, yes, it's outdated, but I'm still going to try to be a good person. Let's see. You know what? I kept getting told, no matter how much you pray, your prayer's probably not good enough. You probably made 80,000 mistakes in the wudu that lasted 30 seconds. Your hajj probably didn't even count. Your prayers didn't count. Your recitation of Quran didn't count. As a matter of fact, you could grow your beard or dress Islamically, put a hijab on if you're a girl. You could do all that stuff, but you're probably a hypocrite. Chances are you're a hypocrite. In other words, no matter what you do, it's probably not good enough. So now, what was my first attitude? It's outdated. It belongs in ancient times. What was my second attitude? It was harsh and unfair. What was my third attitude? You can't win. That leads me to my fourth attitude. And my fourth attitude is a result of the first 3. And that was, what's the point? What's the point? I mean, if it's so outdated and it's so harsh, I'm a terrible person anyway. Allah is already angry at me anyway. Why should I make myself even more miserable? Why even bother with this religion? I mean, I'm not going to tell my parents that I'm not Muslim anymore, or I don't want to be a Muslim anymore, because they might freak out. So I'll still go act like I'm praying. But whatever, dude, let me just live my life. Let me just live my life. We have to create a space where young people can ask their questions, and they're not going to be told, Astaghfirullah al-Azim, there's a shaitan on you, let me do some ruqyah on you, let me blow this, you have a deep spiritual problem. Hold on. The problem might be spiritual, I agree. But if you don't allow a space where young people can feel free to ask their questions, then guess what? They get that space elsewhere. They get it at the university, where they can ask whatever question and it's fine. And we can discuss it. What do we do in our masajid? Somebody gives a lecture on some super academic thing, like the fiqh of selling camels or something, and then some guy raises it, I have a question, what about alcohol? What about this? What about that? What about children who speak against their parents? Etc., etc., etc. And the shaykh says, please, this is not our subject today. Please sit down. Somebody else with a question. Instead of giving people the space to hear them out, we'd rather shut them up. A transformation is necessary, both on the academic front, the way we approach the teaching of Islam. I think the Muslims should be the ones who begin critical thinking and education in critical thinking, asking the right kinds of questions. If we're talking about Islamic schools, then we should be talking about how Islamic schools should prepare you for public high school, both emotionally, psychologically, but also intellectually. If we're talking about Islamic high school, then the first introduction to philosophy, anthropology, sociology, evolutionary biology, those kinds of subjects that shake somebody up in the first semester of college, those kinds of subjects should not be dealt with the first time at the hands of non-Muslims, but actually by Muslims who know what they're talking about. This is what needs to get done. If this doesn't get done, then why are you surprised that these kids are shaken up? It's really not their fault. Yes, we don't have the kind of resources, but you know what? You don't need many resources anymore. There are social media networks out there. What used to take millions and millions and millions of dollars to propagate, you can just throw on YouTube. If it's a powerful idea, it'll resonate. It'll get out there. We just have to up our quality, up our game. Those of you that have gone through a faith crisis and Allah has brought you out of that crisis, you are actually morally obligated to do something about others who are going through that crisis. What I'm trying to say once again, all four of those attitudes are not a problem of Islam. It is unfortunately a problem of an unintelligent, unfair, disingenuous representation of Islam. So it is high time that the Muslim community that is trying to come to its senses takes charge once again, puts the smartest of our intellectuals, the smartest of our scholars, the most level-headed of our people, put the onus on them on teaching this Islam the way it's supposed to be taught. And not just teaching it the way it's supposed to be taught, meaning write a PhD paper, or write another book, or give another 4-hour lecture. No, because that's never going to reach a 16-year-old. My old 16-year-old self, my 18-year-old self would never be interested in a fatwa. What does that mean? Fat what? I wouldn't be interested in it. What would I be interested in? I'd be interested in a movie. I'd rather go see a movie. I'd rather go see, I'll play a video game. I would. By the way, this is not some liberal, modern, progressive concept. Presenting Islamic ideas through creative media. As a matter of fact, that in its core is a Quranic concept. وَالْعَادِيَاتِ ضَبْحًا فَالْمُورِيَاتِ قَدْحًا فَالْمُغِيرَاتِ صُبْحًا فَأَثَرْنَ بِهِ نَقْعًا فَوَسَطْنَ بِهِ جَمْعًا. Those ayat of Surah Al-Adiyat have nothing to do with the Akhirah. They have nothing to do with the Day of Judgment. They have nothing to do with the Sahaba. They have nothing to do with jihad fi sabilillah. That hasn't even happened yet. It's a Makki surah. They just have to do with epic horses that are going into battle. An action film. And by the way, if the Arabs loved something, it was an action film. And if it had horses, what? Fast and Furious. It got their attention. The Quran got their attention. Because Allah knows there are some things that captivate the mind, that's looking to be, to be entertained. And those ayat, if you study the imagery in them, it's remarkably entertaining. If some young creative people put that into film, people will watch. They'll make an epic trailer. You know how they have epic trailers? Horses riding, swords, there's an enemy standing there, spears ready, and as soon as the clash is about to happen, this ain't bro. I have to see this. That's literally what the Quran did. We need to not just learn what the Quran says. We need to learn how it says it. Allah has a divine way of teaching things.